All right, what's up everyone? It's Mike Deiure. How you doing out there? Welcome to our live guitar lesson. We're just waiting for everyone to kind of pile in here. If you're out there, let me know how the audio and visual sounds. Let me know that you guys are hearing me and that you're seeing me. So we got a little chat box there for you to kind of interact with me, ask questions. I can see everything live that's going on, so sounds. Well, we got sounds. Are they good? Awesome. All right, thanks, Coco. So, it's sounding good. All right, very good. So, once again, welcome everyone. I am Mike Deiure, creator of both rockguitarpower.com, superguitarlicks.com. I've been teaching guitar for over 15 years. And I'm super excited to do my second live guitar lesson, online live guitar lesson, brought to you by the awesome people over at Tivamo.com. Tivamo is an awesome service that's allowing people like me to reach out to people like you and help you guys get better at guitar. And Tivamo is an excellent platform for teaching, for performance, for whatever you want to do. So if you're out there and you have any ideas of how you'd like to interact with people that you know, check them out. You're already on here, so you know where to go. And there's some other really great, what they call modes, are these live sessions to check out. So be sure you check out the homepage there and dig in. So as people are thanks, man. So this is my Japanese Strat, Steve, and I actually like it better than my American. I do have an American, but I had a student of mine owned this guitar, and I tried it once, and I'm like, my God, that thing's amazing. So he actually sold it to me, and it's my favorite. So, cool. So I'm here to cover any questions that you guys have about learning, playing, anything with guitar that you're interested in. I have a couple topics that I'm going to be talking about today just to kind of get things started. I did send out a survey a while ago and asked, everybody out there, what are the things that you guys want to know? And there was definitely some common things. Last week we talked about improving and getting better at bar chords, which is a very essential piece to playing guitar well, learning your favorite tunes, and so forth. We also talked a bunch about scales, about modes, which are a lot more in line with lead playing, with soloing. Super fun stuff. It's one of the things I like most about playing guitar. So we dove into that, and you can go pretty deep, but we wanted to kind of keep it simple and just hit the basics. But again, I'm here to answer whatever questions you have. So while we go, I'll be checking back and forth with the chat. So if you guys have questions of things you want me to cover, type them in and I'll dig in. A couple of the topics that I'm going to cover today to get things started. The first is going to deal with metronome. So a lot of people asked about how to improve their speed, some exercises for scales, just things in general they could do to get better. And it's kind of funny because no one really mentioned the metronome, and people usually don't. It's one of those things that people, unless you're really in tune to how powerful it can be, most people don't go down that road of starting with it. And it's such a simple device, and it is so powerful. I got mine here today, and you could find these free on iPhone apps or your cell phone apps or whatever. So we're going to dive in a little bit about how I use something like this to improve my playing in every aspect, not just as it relates to speed and shredding and soloing, but just every single thing that I do. You get used to using one of these, and it's just amazing because you excel so much quicker. People, no matter who you are, last time I checked, time doesn't seem to go any slower. It goes quicker, and people's schedules are getting faster. Even those of you who might be retired, I have students that are just like, I got retired and then I got more busy. So, really maximizing the time that you have to practice and improve is essential. And with a little bit of discipline or just a little bit of know-how, we're going to show you how this little device is going to take the time that you have and really use the most of it to get better really fast. And once you get used to it, it's super fun. And nowadays, there's so many things out there like backing tracks, drum beats, loops, that are essentially the same thing and can make it even more fun. But there's something about that simplicity of just one click kind of beaten out, and we're going to learn how to use that a bit today. So, cool. Hang on. Let's see what we got here. I missed last week's question, but you can go bar chords again. Ah, gotcha. Absolutely. So, Olivia, thanks for the question. Yeah, I'll cover it a little bit. One thing to note is there is the replay available of last lesson. So, and there will be a replay of this lesson as well. So, if you go to the homepage on my Tivamo page, you should be able to see the replay. So, we're working on the quality and everything else with it, but I also have a replay available on rockguitarpower.com. So, for those of you who might not be familiar, if you go to rockguitarpower.com, I'll put up a link later in the chat or something like that. But we have the replays available, and I'll post it up here. But just to cover it more in depth, you can go check it out there. The other thing, too, is I'll reference a bunch of things on my website, because a lot of the things I cover and teach are things that I pull from my website, because both Rock Guitar Power and Super Guitar Licks have so many essential things that I teach and that people want to learn. That so many answers are there, but there's nothing like doing things one-on-one where you can get instant feedback. So, all right, so we'll dive into that a little bit later, Olivia. Let's talk into the metronome, all right? So right now, the metronome I love the most is called the Korg. It's a MA30. The reason I love this one is because it actually allows you to break up the beat into different variations, but that's not even essential. Basically, our metronome, if we turn it on, it's just going to give us a steady beat, all right? One of the most important parts of playing and in music is rhythm. And if you don't got rhythm, you don't got anything, all right? You could tell instantly if you're out there playing guitar and your rhythm, if you're soloing, the second someone loses their rhythm, it's apparent that everything just goes downhill. So learning to establish solid rhythm is what this little device is going to allow us to do. And what I'm going to do is show you a simple exercise that's going to allow you to really show you how quickly you can get faster with it. So what we're going to do is start off with our metronome. In this case, we're going to go down, let's say, at 80. So everything is by beats per minute. And usually what your click represents is a quarter note, okay? So if whatever beat you stomp your foot to, that's what that click represents, all right? So we're going to bring this down to 80, and I'm also not going to put any accent on the beat. So you can see here, this thing's just going to click back and forth, okay? Now, the pattern I'm going to take is just going, let's turn on a little bit of distortion here. Can I show you how to make it fun? Absolutely. Yeah, that's the problem. Most people don't find them fun. What I tell my students is make it a game. Make it like a level that you got to beat. Kids can really relate to that, but grown-ups too. So we're going to show you how to do that. So let's take a simple melody or a simple lick, okay? We're going to play an A minor pentatonic. So if I play my 5th fret on the big E string and just play minor pentatonic, we're going to get to the 7th fret on the G string. And we're going to play 4 notes. We're going to play 7, 5 on the G string, and then we're going to do the same thing on the D string. 7, 5. Just 4 notes. All right? 7, 5, 7, 5. I personally like to start this with an upstroke, so I'm going up, down, up, down. All right? Up, down, up, down. Now, let's put that to a metronome. So we're at 80 beats per minute. And what I'm going to do is play quarter notes. So I'm going to play 1 note per beat. Check it out. Okay, nothing hard here. But what you want to do is really establish that steady beat that you got going there. Okay? Now, the next step is to start increasing your speed. All right? Technique is very important when you're working on this type of thing. So you want to make sure when you're increasing, you're not going up to crazy speeds quickly. Take it by about 3 to 5 beats per minute. Okay, so if I'm at 80, we're going to jump up to 85 and do the same thing. And believe me, this gets exciting quick. So don't think this is boring right now. We'll get moving very soon. So check it out. All right. So you keep cranking that up until things start getting a little tricky, okay? So let's say I get up to 100, all right? Okay, still pretty easy. Let's go up to 120. So what we're going to do now is take that all the way up until you double your initial speed. We started at 80, so now we're going to get up to 160, which again, if you're playing quarter notes, it's not that tricky. And everyone's going to learn at their own speed, but here's 160. So what I want to start doing too, before you play it, is listen in your head how it's going to sound. You know, when I hear that click, I'm thinking bum 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 bum. Before I even touch my guitar, I want to know in my head what it's going to sound like when I play it. All right, makes sense? So now here's what we do. We're going to take that same speed, go back to our original tempo though. So we're going to go back down to 80. But now, instead of playing quarter notes, we're going to play eighth notes, which get 2 notes per click. So this is the same exact speed that we were just playing at, but now we're playing twice as many notes inside the beat, okay? So check it out. Here's 80. So now we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. So again, we're not getting crazy fast thrashing right now, but even if you're just starting with this, take it slow, work your way up, and document where you're at when you do this. If you could only make it to 120, you know, week 1, make a note and then see if you can get to 130, 140 the next week or the next day, whatever. Here is the super powerful tip for making this effective. To really build speed, agility, and accuracy, one thing that I find is the most useful is playing something at one tempo, playing it twice as fast, and then going back. Doing that really gives you control. So what we'll do is play 1 bar at 80, 1 bar at quarter notes at 80, 1 bar at eighth notes, and then go back to quarter notes. Check it out. Here's how it sounds. So again, still might not seem like anything too exhilarating or exciting. But now what we're going to do is take that and start boosting it up. So let's, again, when you're working on this, work at your own speed. But I'm going to move a little bit quicker just to illustrate how I would try this out with any exercise. So let's move it up to 100. And again, I'm going to think about the way it sounds. Bum, 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 bum. All right, so same idea. We're going to take that. Let's get it back up to 160 again, okay? So here's 160. Now eighth notes start getting to be pretty quick. If you listen to it, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4. All right, so now we're starting to get a little bit of speed. We're starting to feel some energy, okay? This is where things start getting a lot more fun and exciting. So what we're going to do now, let's take that back to our original tempo. We're going to go back down to 80, all right? And what we're going to do now is play 16th notes. So we have 4 notes in a beat. And this is essentially playing the same speed we just played at eighth notes at 160. But now what we're doing is hearing and playing more notes within the same beat, okay? Let's hear how this sounds. 3, 4. All right, now here's a tip. What people usually find when they're kind of working this technique out is that they start losing where that click is. So you want to accent where that beat is. So 3 notes are going to be a little bit quieter, and then that 4th note is going to be nice and loud. Alright, that's going to help me really connect with the click. Now that we're at 16th notes, this is where the speed really kicks in, okay? So when I start and move up the tempo here, we're going to really start feeling the energy and things are going to get tricky. At whatever tempo, this is going to be a different tempo for everybody, but what will happen is that you'll start finding a time when it becomes super tricky to do. You'll hit a wall where it's like, I can't get over that, I can't play that fast, okay? Let's check it out. We're going to get moving a bit and I'll start showing you what I mean. So let's jump up to 100. Alright, and here's so we're going to play a bar of quarter notes, a bar of 8th notes, and a bar of 16th notes. So, as I start getting into that 16th note beat variation, things start, you could feel, or you will feel at whatever speed you're at that this happens, things start getting a little sloppy. You might not get clean notes. So, at some point, you're going to find that out. And this is where people get stumped. I had a lot of people ask me, and a lot of students ask me, how do I get faster? How do I get playing quicker? I can only get so fast, and then I can't go any quicker. So the secret that works really well for me, and that I've seen it work for so many other people, is to take your tempo. Let's say 120 is where I can't get faster. I could do 16th notes at 120, but after that it just gets sloppy. What you're going to do is go down to 110 and just practice there nice and slow, play everything super clean. Then what you're going to do is jump to 130. Just like weightlifting or any other type of endurance training or strength training, if you want to do something more heavier, faster, whatever, you have to do at least 1 or 2 over what you're used to. That builds muscle, builds dexterity. So we're going to go to 130, but the goal is not to play it super clean. You're only going to do it and maybe connect with it once or twice. So in other words, let's hear what this sounds like. There's 120. All right, here's the 130. All right, so you might not connect with them all, and that's okay. But if you connect with it once or twice, you'll get the sense of what it sounds like, and you're going to hear yourself playing it. That's where it gets exciting. Now, you're going to do that a few times, and then jump back to 110 where it's comfortable. Relax and just play it. Or if you're not even, the other thing that you can do is don't worry about going down in tempo, go down in rhythm. So if I can't get 16th notes good, I'm going to drop back down to 8th notes. So check it out. I'm going to hang here, which is comfortable. And as you can see, what I do is just once in a while I'll break into playing that faster beat, and it's twice as fast. Being able to play with your rhythm like that is what establishes really great connection and control. So there's your technique to really take a lick and really get going with it. The thing is, once your fingers are able to connect and play 16th notes, that's a very big stepping stone at a certain tempo. Then if you want to play a different line, a different lick, or something totally different, it's not going to be as hard because your fingers know what it feels like to play at that tempo, at that rhythm. In other words, let's take the whole pentatonic scale and apply this pattern. So if we go... Alright, we're going to take this whole scale, and what we're going to do is move down it with that same rhythm. Now we we have something that sounds more like a solo, more like something that we would use, okay? So these are the tips just to get started with a very simple exercise. When you're working with a metronome, again, to make it fun, don't try to do anything crazy. Keep it very simple. Play one note. Don't even do a pattern. Play one like this. Okay? So if you're just beginning with this, start even easier and make it a game. Make it to see how fast you can get before it starts sounding weird. Okay, if we take this one lick or this one note, let's jump. Here's 160. Alright, so I could hear myself connecting with 160 at 16th notes. That's fun and exciting. So now the next thing is play maybe 2 notes and go back and forth. That's when things really get tricky, and if you stumble on it, it's all good. Take it slower and work your way back up. It's this kind of back and forth motion that really makes it fun and that I am able to see the most benefit. Let me know if that's helping you guys. You know, feel free to chat in there. Let me know if you understand that, if that makes sense, and so forth. But, you know, basically you could kind of look at, if here is, let's say this represents your tempo where you're comfortable, okay? So if you can't get over this, we're going to bring the tempo down to here, play for a bit. Then bring your tempo up to here, all right? And very slowly, this might move up a notch. Then we have a new guideline to play. So now we're going to play down here in tempo, and then go faster than you can handle. But play it once or twice, and then slowly but surely, this bar keeps raising. And that's how you're able to really get shredding. So just for fun, I'm going to play, let's see how fast we can get this lick going. So I'm on my Strat, not my fastest. My other Ibanez is a little bit better for shredding, but we'll see what happens. So let's take this down to 140. All right, let's move it up to 150. So let's get up to 160. It's definitely getting fast. All right, so you can start seeing it gets a little hairy in there, but it's super fun. And when I could hear myself connecting with it a couple times, I get excited because I know the way that's sounding. I'm hearing myself play it, and that becomes really fun. Oops, hang on, let me reset this screen here. So that is one of the things that you could do to get started with a metronome, okay? Keep it simple, find a simple pattern, but then really try to work with it. Now that we just hit upon using, you know, even beats, we can do this with triplets and some other cool stuff too. Let's go ahead and listen to how a lick like this would sound over a jam, okay? I'm going to call up a backing track, something that's on what we call the Guitar Pro Jam. This is on rockguitarpower.com. There's a Pro Jam that we jammed to last week that's really fun. It's called the Funky C Minor Jam. So as the song states, this is in C minor. So what we're going to do is take our lick that we just did and move it up to C minor. We were in A minor. So we're going to move up to C minor. So our pattern will start at the 8th fret. All right? And there's our lick. All right? Now this backing track is at the tempo of 115. So what we're going to do is just let the track go, but know that we're at 115. So if you're working on a song or a solo or you want to jam, you know what your tempo is, because that's the baseline of how you use your metronome, okay? Let's go ahead and play this and see what happens. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense, guys? Pretty cool stuff, all right? So you could see how I used that same pattern and really created just a bunch of really cool ideas. It's also one of Zakk Wylde's really signature licks. If you're familiar with Zakk, he was Ozzy's guitar player forever, and now he's in his own band called Black Label Society, which is, you know, just killer awesome band. He's an awesome shredder. It's one of his favorite licks that you'll see him do all the time at really, really blistering fast speed. So it's really cool to check out. Cool. Do you guys have any questions on that? Let me know. Fill in the chat box there. You know, if you have any questions on other stuff, you know, I'm gonna talk a little bit about melodies and how to create them as well, because that was another question that people asked. But if you're out there and you have questions about what you want me to cover, if you have any, feel free to type them in. But otherwise, we are going to jump into learning some, oops, all right, oops, sorry, hang on, there a bunch came in. All right, hang on a sec, let's see. All right, okay, to develop speed, train to the metronome at a slower speed, let your hand get. Yes, Steve, very good, awesome. All right, hang on. Please say the frets again. Sorry. Yeah, Olivia. The frets that we started off on were 7, 5, 7, 5. Okay, this is in an A minor pentatonic scale. So if you go to the 7th fret on the G string, all right, and then you just play 7, 5, and then 7, 5 on the D string. Okay. All right, but that's basically inside your minor pentatonic pattern, so you could really use that anywhere. You could also see how I move that up to like 8, 5. So if I look at the pattern, 8, 5, 8, 5, 8, 5, 8, 5. All right, so those are your little, you know, boxy patterns that keep it simple. All right, let's see what else we have. Aha, yes, we are doing it with a pick. If I were to use my fingers, it's a little bit different. Number one, you kind of want the guitar for it. So an example would be, let me switch over to my nylon guitar, which is a lot more in tune to using your fingers to play with, okay? I also studied, does that sound all right? Can you hear that? So if we do the same thing with our fingers, it's really not too much different. You know, when you use your fingers, you want to alternate, okay, and use what's known as a rest stroke. So if I'm here, I'm going to do same notes and alternate. I'm going to start with my middle finger. So I'm going to go middle, first finger, middle, first finger. Now, what I mean by rest stroke, if you're not familiar, is that when I play the note, you can see that my finger rests into the next string. This is what allows me to get speed and control, also without having all the other strings and notes ring out. So, okay, you're only going to want to use these two fingers, but let's put it to a metronome real quick. Are you fretting with your first and third finger? Yes, I am. So we have our third finger, our ring finger, is going to be on the 7th fret, and our first finger is on the 5th fret, and those just always stay on those two frets. So 3, 1, 3, 1. All right. So same idea goes though for developing speed. Now, if you're new to using your fingers, that's a new technique. Just like we, you know, instead of using 4 notes to play, just play one note to get the pick down. If it's with my fingers, it's the same idea. All right, if we're at, let's go to 140. See what I mean? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All right. So now, if I'm doing that, we could try it with the notes now. That one's tricky. So. Good, yes. Exactly, Olivia, yes. playing rest stroke is exactly what most people do on bass. If you have ever played bass and you don't use a pick, if you use your fingers, which most bass players do, you're playing the string and you're resting into the next string, okay? So that's your rest stroke technique. And again, that might be new to a lot of people. Or if you do finger style, acoustic on a steel string, it's very similar. When you're playing scales, a lot of times people use that rest stroke technique because it helps you stay controlled. The opposite is what's known as free stroke, and that's where my finger, if you look at it from this angle, I don't know if you can see this all right, but you can see here my finger goes up in the air, all right, versus rest stroke where it rests into the next string. Free stroke is a lot more for playing melodies, arpeggios, or anything else. But when I go into playing scale runs, okay, so cool, awesome. Median of the strings, the rest. Do I got that right? Yeah. So the other factor, good point. She mentioned about how to mute the strings and resting. So the other thing that helps with this technique is keeping the other strings quiet, okay? And the two ways we do that, if I'm using rest stroke, you can see that my thumb rests on the big string, all right? So that's keeping that quiet. And then a lot of it is how I kind of come off the notes, all right? With rest stroke, you're going to keep the notes nice and tight, and you don't have to worry as much about notes ringing out. If we go back to our electric, sorry if that gave you a pop there, or in this case, let's try using our acoustic and just mix it up a little bit. So if we use an acoustic or a steel string, a lot of times when you're using a pick, things can make a lot of noise, okay? So if you look at my hand, what happens is my palm is actually resting on the first two big strings, because those strings, it will start making noise just out of the other notes vibrating. So controlling your notes is another big aspect of playing guitar well and getting good tone. So the other thing I get used to is I don't want my palm way up in the air like this. When I play and get faster, all right, I'm working on the control of keeping my palm on the strings I'm not using. All right, that's keeping those quiet. And then what's happening here is that the bottom parts of my finger are kind of touching the little strings to keep those quiet. So obviously there's a lot of concepts here that, I'm just making sure there's no new questions there. Cool. So there's a lot of techniques and there's a lot of things I'm introducing here, but that's why you want to take it really slow, okay? When you're really starting to build speed, everything gets kind of mushy quick unless you have that technique really refined. And working on this at a slow tempo allows you to see every little thing that's happening, okay? So in other words, I'm being conscious of my hand touching the strings here to keep them quiet. I'm conscious of my fingers coming off the notes and not connecting them too much. See how those two notes ring into each other? Okay, I don't want that, so I want to make sure my fingers kind of jump off the notes. There's all these little things that happen when you're working on your technique for speed and accuracy, and that's just one aspect of it. So, good questions. Keep them coming if you have more. If you want me to stay on this topic, I'm happy to, but I was also going to talk about building melodies to kind of create some improvising and jamming ideas. That's something that a lot of people ask me about, and that it's also kind of a big unknown for a lot of people, because a lot of people, if you just show them the pentatonic scale or a basic scale and tell them start it here for this song, they'll get the idea just to go up and down, while the jam plays. But they don't really understand how to build melodies in something that's interesting to listen to. So let me mix it up, and we're going to find a different backing track to jam to and talk about building some melodies. All right, one more question from Olivia. Keep them coming. So do you have any tips on playing the B minor A chord? I'm able to mute the low E with my thumb, but I'm having a really hard time muting, not playing the high E string. When I try to mute, the whole chord falls apart. Gotcha. Awesome question. So let's dive into this for a sec. So I'm assuming when you say B minor A chord, I guess you're talking about playing a B minor chord rooted on the A string. Is that right, Olivia? Or do you have any other ways to play it? No, that's okay. I think I get the idea. But let's start off with this one, because again, just like we were talking about keeping your strings clean and your tone clean, this is a perfect example. And I actually didn't even mention this a whole lot last week when we talked about bar chords. So one of the biggest tips that I tell students, especially right when they're starting off, is playing and becoming a good guitar player. So much of it has to do with controlling the notes that you don't want to ring out, okay? Obviously, you want to sit there and work out playing what you need to play. Look in the Beatles, huh? Yeah, so you want to work on getting those notes to sound good, but also what comes in with that is making sure that the notes you don't want to ring out stay muted. So in this case, what we're doing is taking a B minor bar chord on the A string. So if you go to your 2nd fret, and let's keep this simple. Let's talk about doing a power chord. A lot of people are familiar with a power chord. And it's the same idea when you use a minor chord. So if we go on the 2nd fret of the A string with my 1st finger, my ring finger and pinky are going to go on to the 4th fret of the D and G strings. So I'm going to have these 3 notes. All right? Now, I only want those 3 notes to ring out when I'm playing a power chord. When I have a clean tone on, like I do right now, it's a little bit easier to hear this. If I have my distortion kind of cranked, alright, it sounds a little bit cooler, but things make more noise. Here's what you don't want. Alright, there's what you don't want. Here's what you do want. Now, if you look at my hand, it's probably looking like I'm not doing a whole lot. Here's the main thing I'm doing, and here's the big tip for you. It's all good. Let's see. I meant to say the B minor. So, all right. Well, I'll get to that in a sec. Let me just finish this topic, and we'll talk about B minor. Let me know where you want to root that B minor chord, and we can kind of look at it. But so this, to finish this idea. What I'm going to do is use the tip of my 1st finger, all right? And it's going to touch the big string just lightly. I don't want it to push it down. I just want it to mute it. If I go back to my clean tone, here's what I'm trying to achieve. You hear that thud? Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm pushing down the 2nd fret on my A string, but my big string is now muted. So now I'm free to go ahead and play the strings. If I hit the big string, it's not going to ring out. So that's how I control the notes that I don't want to ring out, okay? A really huge element in playing. This takes time to get comfortable with. If you're new to bar chords, be patient with it. But keep it in mind always. Maybe write it down on a Post-it note or whatever, because people get frustrated with that. But what you want to do is be aggressive with it. A lot of times people are too scared for things to sound bad. Don't worry about it. Everyone's going to sound like crap at some point. And this is a perfect example. So I could go ahead and wail into that, and now it sounds good. Now to play a B minor chord, I'm going to add my middle finger to the 3rd fret of the B string. Alright, and this is a movable bar chord. Now, I have one more thing I got to worry about, and that's the little E string. If I don't do anything, it's ringing out. That note is not in this chord, so we don't want it there. So there's 2 options. I could mute it by using my 1st finger. Okay, the skin from the bottom of this finger is lightly touching the little string, and that's stopping it from ringing out. Same thing with the big string. Okay, so now I could go ahead and feel like a rock star, get the big strum in there, And you could see that the only notes that are ringing out are the ones that I want to, that should be in the chord. Same goes with the power chord. You know, if we take just those 3 notes, I'm able to wail through all my strings, right? And it sounds really good. So now, you can see that the only ones that ring out are the notes that I want. And now, to end that idea, we do want that little string to ring out. So instead of muting it, just try to put a little bit of extra effort to lay that finger flat and push it down. All right, there you go. All right, let's see what chord we got here. So, okay, so yeah, that's the one. So we're at 2. So, right, this is the B minor chord, and so Olivia put the little X's there. So the big string is an X, which means it's muted. We have the 2nd fret, we have the 4th fret and the 4th fret, and then we have the middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and then the little string is muted. So, like we just talked about, all right, there's B minor, but you can go ahead and push that first finger down, and if you get that note, all right, it sounds even better. Now, don't worry if it doesn't ring out, because it's the same note that's in your ring finger. It's an F sharp. So that note is already being played, so if you don't get that little string to ring out, you don't have to worry about it. Or if you don't want that high voicing, okay, you don't have to worry about it. You can mute it, and then you'll have a tighter sound. Maybe somebody else is singing that note, or another instrument is playing that high F sharp, and you don't want it to ring out. What you want to do is establish that control. So getting those muted, it takes some practice, Olivia. A lot of it is, you know, working your fingers around to figure out what works. Another thing that you could try is start with the notes that aren't dealing with the first finger or with the barred finger, because that's a big thing that always moves around. The other 3 notes I could start with. So in other words, I'm going to go 4, 4, 3, all right, with these fingers. Now, when I really get that comfortable and sounding good, then what I could do is try to work my first finger on. You can see right now, I'm doing some finger exercises by just trying to isolate my first finger. If I could do this, it means I got a lot better control. And now I could kind of work it around the other notes. So now, I'm using, now if you can see, if I strum the big string, it's ringing out. Maybe I just got to inch this finger up just slightly enough to now it's muting. And I could feel that in the tip of my finger. So that's some really, and they're just very, very minute little movements. So you want to take it slow, but be cognizant of what's happening. Start with just a power chord, okay? So don't worry about the full B minor chord, because like we talked about last week, one of the things that's tricky for people with bar chords is that it's a lot like holding a push-up in the middle, okay? In other words, if I were to do a push-up and I lock my arms out, I could stay up like this for a long time. If I go down and rest on my chest, I could probably stay there all day. But if I try to like stay right in the middle, eventually everything starts shaking because your muscles are tense. It's exactly what's happening with a bar chord with your fingers. I'm doing this shape, and I'm keeping a lot of muscles tense right here, okay? So when you do that, you got to realize there's only so long you're going to do that before your hand, you got to shake it out and rest it. Eventually your hand just gets really strong and this gets easier. But if you're just starting out with these chord shapes, keep that in mind. That's what's happening, you know, with your fingers. So be patient with it and record yourself. I tell so many people to do this. You know, listen to what you sound like today, doing what you're working on. But record yourself. Progress happens slow. You might not notice that you make progress in a week, maybe 2 weeks. But if you record yourself a month later and you've been steadily practicing this, I guarantee you'll be shocked at how much better you got. You just didn't realize it because it happens really slow. So let's see if that helps out. Let's see. Yes, it can be played. So Olivia says I can. Let's see. I can do a slow strum, but when I start in on a strum pattern, it falls to pieces. Yep, that happens a lot. You're not alone. The big thing, any question anyone probably has about playing guitar, just keep in mind you're not alone. All right, so if I'm playing, let's let's say we do, you know, something like the chords to Hotel California. What's really good is to go back and forth between a couple chord shapes and see if when you get back to that chord, it's still there. Again, this is not going to happen right away, but you got to make a loop of it and practice it that way. Looping things around really helps to keep things easier to practice to, if you will, and you can see quicker results. So with strumming, don't be afraid of it sounding like crap. I tell it to everybody and they laugh at me, but it's so true. Everyone's scared of playing it once and it not sounding good. Don't worry about it. You gotta just work through it. Play it loud and proud. If it sounds like crap, take it slow and just keep tweaking your fingers until you find what works. Just like we did with the metronome earlier. You know, with the metronome, you're trying to get a consistent quality at a speed, okay? It doesn't happen that way. You're going to first establish one or two quick notes that sound good. The rest will go to crap. But after you keep doing it, you're going to get playing more consistent and more clean a lot more, and you'll get there faster. Same goes with bar chords like we're working on, all right? If you're sitting there trying to strum it, and this is what you get, you know, as I keep going, I'm going to find that one or two strums start sounding good, then three or four. And don't do a tricky, complex strum pattern. Keep it simple. Just down and up. But work on getting it clean. Okay? So, that's a movable bar chord. The other question she asked is just finding a new way to play it. Let's see. I can't really see the details of your fingers. So, I can't really see the details of your fingers. Are you just organically moving it around or a set movement? As far as my right hand or my left hand. Because my strumming hand here is just playing it down and up. All right, like I said, keep a very simple pattern. Down and up. Okay, so if I don't have the little E string, that's what it sounds like. But if I add the E string, you can hear that high voice kind of kick in, okay? Now, if we want to play this same chord somewhere else, we could also play it as a movable bar chord. Now, again, if you're more advanced, are some really cool ways you can mix this up and do a lot of different things. But to keep it simple and keep it usable for a lot of different cases, bar chords are a really good way to go. So, we could take the same chord and play it up on the 7th fret of the big E string. And what we're going to do now is use all the strings. So with this chord shape, we don't have to worry about it muting, or we don't have to worry about muting anything or not having strings ring out, because we want all of them to ring out. So this is a simple shape. Basically, you're going to start off with a power chord. So I have my first finger on the 7th fret of the big E string. My ring finger and pinky are on the 9th fret of the A and D string. Start off with those three notes. All right, there's my good old power chord. All right, then my first finger is going to bar and push everything else down. So the last three strings are barred with my first finger on the 7th fret. Now this is actually a little bit tricky for most people. It's actually harder sometimes than a major bar chord or the minor shape we were working on the A string. The reason why is because this first finger needs to stay really straight. This is something we talked about last week with bar chords and how to get them good. When I play this shape, here's what it should sound like. Alright, if I play this in comparison here, you see it's the same chord, the notes are stacked a little bit different. It's what we call a little bit of a different voicing. So the notes, we're playing the same notes, but they're in a bit different order. And of course here, there's some notes that are in the higher octave, in the higher register. So there's your bar chord that's also that's on the big E string, okay? And that's a B minor because again, my first note is on the note B, so then all I need to know is the minor bar chord shape. I talk about these more in volume 2 of Rock Guitar Power. So if you go to rockguitarpower.com, under the navigation there's a panel that says volume 2, and there's a lesson on my major and minor bar chords. I talk a lot about the same techniques and go into them a little bit more in depth to kind of help you get these down, because they are so useful that it's really helpful to get them as good as you can. Does that help? Let's see. All right. Any other questions on that, Olivia? Super good questions. You know, keep them coming in. I love answering them, and hopefully this helps out. Because believe me, like I said, you know, you're not the only one that struggles with this. A lot of people are working to get over these you know, beginner to intermediate techniques. But once you get them good, they open up the doors for you to play just about anything you want, you know, as far as classic rock, folk, country, whatever. So many tunes can be played with these bar chords. All right, you got it. Awesome. So yeah, bar chords, super helpful, super powerful. All right, you can, even though it's not something you necessarily need to use the metronome with, a lot of this stuff is just technique stuff. All right, so it's really moving things around and getting those fingers to do what you need them to do. All right. So we got about 10 minutes left or so. I can hang a little bit longer, but if there's any other big major things you guys want me to talk about, if you have questions, please by all means type them in and I can cover it and help you guys out. Because I want to save, I'll do a quick thing on melody stuff, but I don't want to go too crazy into it if I only got 10 minutes, because some of these techniques and topics are going to take a little bit longer to talk about. But let's fire up a new jam track and we'll talk briefly about melodies. So we're going to go to the Pro Jam on Rock Guitar Power, and there's a Pro Jam called B Minor Bluesy Rock Groove. All right, so all the jam tracks and resources that I have on both Rock Guitar Power and Super Guitar Licks usually name the key and tells you where to start. So, you know, it kind of gives you that beginner tip of where you got to start to make things work and sound good. So this one's in B minor. Let's go ahead and give a listen to the jam track. All right, hold off on that idea. All right, so Larry is asking, any tips on using partial notes in an A bar chord as opposed to an open A chord? Absolutely. So tips on using partial notes in an A bar chord as opposed to an open chord. So let's talk about this. So we got an open A chord. A lot of people are familiar with open chords. An open A chord looks like this. Most people play it with your first, second, and third finger on the second fret of the D, G, and B strings. And then the little string open. Now if we go and take that same shape we were working with, here's a cool little tip. If we're going to play an A major bar chord, it's going to be over here on the 5th fret of the big string. At least that's one shape that we could use, all right? And if we listen to how closely related they sound, okay, again, same notes, but they're stacked a little bit differently. This shape has some notes that are higher register. So one of the really cool things that you could do with bar chords as opposed to open chords is you have more freedom to kind of hit whatever you want and know that it's going to be there. Now I'm assuming this is what you're asking about, Larry, and because we were talking about using partial notes in an A bar chord. A lot of times you do what are called arpeggios, which is just playing notes in a chord instead of strumming them all at once. So if I were to play an arpeggio that was right in a row, you know, there's your first, third, and fifth of A major. If I play, this is actually playing the root, the fifth, and then the root again, and then the third. Regardless of all the theory stuff, the cool thing about bar chords is that if you put them down, and let's say your song or your jam or you're just feeling out something and you don't feel like strumming or doing some wild stuff, I can just take the shape and just simply pick any notes I want. So this is a really fun way just to introduce the idea of how to move chords around and play partial notes as opposed to full strumming. Let's take a simple chord progression to illustrate this a little bit further. So we're going to play A major, and then we'll go up to D minor. Actually, no, sorry, D major. We'll just do this 1, 4, 5 and keep it simple. So A major, D major, and then E major. Okay, If I were to play that with open chords, okay, so now, if I take this idea, when I use bar chords, I could develop a picking pattern and keep it consistent throughout my chord changes, okay? So in other words, let's go. Now, actually, let's change it a bit. So I played the D chord on the A string and the E on the A string. Let's play the same chord, bar chords, all rooted on the E string. So if we play A major, we can move up to the 10th fret to play D, and up to the 12th fret to play E. Sorry, 10th fret for D, 12th fret for E. Now this might be a little bit cramped, but it's just to illustrate the point. Now what I can do is play a broken up pattern. Okay, so bar chords allow me to keep things very consistent without needing to think a lot. You can't do that necessarily with open chords with the same picking pattern. You know, I can, but it changes as well as the way the notes interact. So when I do it with bar chords, things remain more consistent, and I can kind of just pick through the pattern and experiment with it. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully that helps it out. Let's see if, so not specific to an A chord, but A is an example. You got it. Okay, cool. Absolutely. Good, buddy. Yeah, no, so it's a really fun idea. And again, this is what bar chords open up the doors to. Being more fun, being more creative, finding different ways to play things, okay? You know, if you take something like Hotel California, again, that's a fun song to work on. You know, if you just take, you know, I always start off with these bar chords down here, but the song is actually played with a capo, and they use similar chords. But if I take, you know, the B minor up here, you know, they're doing the same idea. They're taking a chord, excuse me, and they're just playing arpeggios. They're picking notes inside the pattern, all right? But you want to always know where the chord progression is and what the foundation is. So if you experiment with this idea, something that I suggest that's really fun is find a chord progression that sounds good to you, that you're attracted to. If you're learning a song that has these notes broken up like I'm playing, figure out what the root chord progression is. It always exists. Even if you see a song, like if you looked at the tablature of the notes in the music for Hotel California, and you started right from the beginning and not know anything, you'll see notes broken up all over the place, okay? And you'll think that that's just what I got to do. It's all based on chords, okay? Bar chords, block chords, whatever you want to call it. The chord progression is there for almost any song. So if you understand that first, that'll help you keep something intact. Then you could go ahead and have fun with the idea of breaking it up by just experimenting. The cool thing with bar chords is that any note you pick within the shape will work and sound good. So you could really get creative, and you don't need to understand the theory of what you're doing. Many people just, you know, get the whole glazed eyes over headache thing. I don't want to deal with theory. You don't need to. It's really easy just to take bar chords and experiment like we're talking about. Cool. Hopefully that helps. Let's see. What is the strum pattern for Hotel California? I got the piano sheet for it. I can look up the intro, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, what I tell people, I never really go too depth into strum patterns because I like people to kind of use their ear. What I tell people, or like if I would play, you know, here's your basic chord progression. You can very easily hear the song happening on top of this, you know. So what I like to do is just find a couple very simple patterns that work. Again, if you're in a cover band, or if you really want to learn the song exact and verbatim, you know, look at the sheet music and then examine it. I don't like to break into too much detail, especially right now when we don't have a ton of time to do it. The most important thing that I tell students is use your ear. Play something that it sounds good, keep it simple. Another tip too, if you're just starting out with these bar chords and learning songs, what's the most important is to kind of play on beat. So if you got to play and change chords, don't worry about playing a lot of rhythm if you can't get to the next chord on the first beat. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I didn't get to playing my chord until like the second or third beat. if you need to, keep it simple. Make sure you change while the chord or while the rhythm's happening, so you play the next chord on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All right, that's a little tip when you're working on these bar chords to make sure you get that stuff good. All right, cool. Let's see. I'm trying to develop my ear, but it takes time. Yes, it does, Olivia. Definitely. You know, that's something that I'm going to probably save for a new topic. And since we're about to close out, let me make a couple notes, and I'm going to play you a tune. Because that's definitely a good topic, and I could talk about that next lesson, which is already set up, by the way. So I've been doing these on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. It's a good time for me, but it's not always a good time for everybody else. So I have another guitar lesson set up for this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I believe it is at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you go to my Tivamo page, let me just double check that, make sure I'm not lying to you. Let's see. So if you go to tivamo.com, or if you click on the link that you used to get here, that is what you're going to want to do, and you'll find out how you'll see on my page that you could sign up for, let's see, do I have one on there? I should. If it's not set up already, it will be. I do recall setting it up, but we'll see if for some reason it didn't get in the system. It is set up. Right, so you'll see there that you have a date to get in on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, okay? Going to try out a different time for you guys. Hopefully it works out. If you can make it, maybe we'll cover some topics like that. But I'll send out some other notices, and if you're on this one, we'll have Chris over at Tivamo to send out another notice for Sunday, and hopefully that works out for you. We'll go over some ear training. It's a great topic, and cover some other things too. So, all right, let me go ahead and play you a tune. It's up for Sunday at, yes, awesome, great, thanks, Chris. So you guys can check out my lesson on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Another one to check out tomorrow night, Ed Eason, an amazing guitar player. He's actually Carrie Underwood's guitar player, as well as plays for a bunch of other really great bands. He does a guitar lesson and a general open chat, question and answer style tomorrow at, let's see, it would be 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. I think that's the time. You could find it on the tivamo.com homepage. Really great. If you're into music, if you're into guitar, log on tomorrow. You could ask a guy who's played at the Grammys and plays in front of thousands of, sold out shows, people everywhere, total rock star. He's an awesome guy, and he's here just like I am to kind of answer your questions and help you out on what you're doing. He's covering some topics on like how to kind of develop yourself as an artist, things to do to further your career and stuff like that. Huge wealth of information. Check him out, okay? Let's see. What else do we got? Awesome. Yeah, cool. We could throw some links up there. There you go. Awesome. So if you guys are on this right now, go sign up for Ed tomorrow night. He's awesome. He's become a good friend, and check him out. All right, I'm going to play one more tune for you guys to kind of finish this out. I'm going to bust out my nylon because one of the things that I personally love most for guitar is studying different styles of music. When I was in college, I got introduced to classical nylon and studied a lot of Spanish flamenco stuff. But what I'm going to play for you is an original tune that I wrote. And this is called Desperately Odd Measures. It's actually one of those tunes that you write. Hang on a second. Sometimes when you're writing music, you don't really ask questions. You just write what sounds good and call it done. And that's what happened with this song. And it's called Desperately Odd Measures because it's in all these wacky time signatures. And there's actually an electric piece with some crazy solos and all that, but I made it into a solo nylon piece. So here it is. This is Desperately Odd Measures. Desperately Odd Measures. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much. Really look forward to Sunday. So definitely log on. Please share those links. If you find the link, to sign me up, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere. Really get anybody that you know into this. Thank you so much to Tivamo for producing this and allowing us to have the technology to do these type of things. They're really great. Go sign up for them. Well, you're already here and you're signed up. But check out the other sessions that are on Tivamo. Thank you guys. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday, and we'll keep in touch and see you soon. All right, later.